The next dish that some of the kitchens are going to make are called Scotcheroos. It's basically a sweet peanut buttery mixture with Rice Krispies with a chocolate frosting, one of my favorite desserts. We're going to start by measuring out the Rice Krispies. You need 4 cups. Rice Krispies are dry. You're going to use a dry measuring cup. These do not have to be leveled off. You can just shake them off. Here's 1 cup. Here's 2. I always count out loud, especially 3 if I'm dealing in a lab situation with lots of people around, lots of confusion. There's cup number 4, so I don't lose track. Okay? In a saucepan, your larger saucepan, we call it a 2-quart saucepan, you're going to mix together the Scotcheroos syrup, the peanut butter, and the sugar. These 2 will be at the supply table. These you have in your kitchen. You have in a canister in your kitchen. I'm going to start measuring the sugar so that I don't mess up my measuring cup. I'm going to use the same measuring cup for all 3. These are sticky, so I'm going to measure my sugar first. Overfilling the sugar like we talked about and leveling off like we talked about. Exactly 1/2 cup sugar right into the saucepan. Then we're going to do the peanut butter, taking a rubber scraper and packing it into the 1/2 cup measure. You can see when I do that. And using that straight edge on the rubber spatula, leveling that off. I'll get all the excess back into the jar and then use that and get all of it out of your measuring cup, otherwise measuring didn't do you any good. Okay, and then we're going to use that. Corn syrup is liquid. I'm going to do that same liquid thing, setting it on the counter. And again, I want 1/2 cup. Look at it at eye level. Actually, too much. This is very sweet, very thick, very sticky. So if you get it on anything, you'll need to clean it off. And use your rubber scraper to get it all out of here because it will want to stick to your measuring cup. I've moved the saucepan onto the stove. Whenever you're cooking on the stove, you want to match the size of the pan to the size of the burner. You'll notice that I've got 2 big burners, 2 small burners. This is a relatively small pan, so we're going to put that on the small burner just so we don't waste electricity and decrease our chance of getting burnt around the edges. You're going to cook this on a medium-low heat, and you're going to find which control is the back. There's a little picture here. Here's my back control. I'm going to push the knob in and turn it down to medium. And then I'm going to start stirring. I've got the sugar, Scotcheroos syrup, peanut butter, and at first it's a really sticky, ugly, goopy mess. But as you stir it, it will combine and become more uniform. Takes a few muscles to do this. You're burning a few extra calories. You can tell Mrs. Martins you did a little exercise in FCS class today. And you're going to have 1 team member stay with this the entire time. You do not leave this sit. You have to do what we call stir constantly. And we're going to stir this until it's melted. It'll be a lot smoother in the pan, a lot easier to stir, and it won't look so sugary. The sugar will melt and disappear. So we'll continue to do that time lapse. All right, you're going to use either a square or rectangular glass pan. It doesn't really matter the size. If it's smaller, it'll be a thicker Scotcheroo. If it's a bigger pan, it'll be a little thinner Scotcheroo, but it won't change the flavor. We're not having to bake this. It's not going to rise like we talked about, being careful of the same pan size. What you do need to be careful of, though, is spraying it with a nonstick spray. Be careful to do this over a counter. Don't spray it over the floor because this greasy stuff will fall to the floor and now you have a greasy, slippery floor that you could fall and get hurt on. So do this over a counter. Okay, time lapse. We've stirred this, we've cooked it. Notice how smooth and creamy it is? And it's not nearly as hard to stir. And I'm going to pour that, all of that, right over the top of my Rice Krispies. And don't leave a lot of this stuff in the pan because that's ooey goodness and you don't want to leave that behind. Now, we're going to not stir this in a circular motion, but we're going to toss it because the goal is to coat all the Rice Krispies with that sticky substance. And stirring it would just crush the Rice Krispies. I'm kind of coming underneath and coming up through the globs of peanut butter sugar combination. Are these good for you? Absolutely not. All the sugar, both kinds. Peanut butter is good for you, but when combined with all the sugar, not a wise choice. We're going to add more sugar to the top. So we're going to have sugar stacked on sugar today. You want to keep working this until it doesn't look like you have any more dry Rice Krispies left. They're all coated. And it looks like I'm pretty close. And then you're just going to plop them into your greased pan. Do not do this. They're hot. Take something else to scrape it off of here. Now, a trick I've used or learned over the years is to, with this wooden spoon, I'm going to spray this with nonstick spray. Follow me. I want to show you where I found the nonstick spray, and this covered with all your measuring utensils and measuring and mixing bowls. That's where you find your nonstick spray. I'm going to spray the back of my wooden spoon so it's nice and greasy, and then I can use that to flatten this out and it won't stick. If you're doing Rice Krispie treats, sometimes you can use your hand, but it's not nearly as hot. This will burn your hand. And I just want to flatten this out so it's uniform, flat. It's like bars. Check down on your sides. The last step to the Scotcheroos is making the frosting, which is chocolate chips and butterscotch chips melted and stirred together. We're going to do 1 cup of chocolate chips. And a 1/2 cup of butterscotch chips. Put them in a glass bowl. That's the safest for the microwave so we don't start any fires and we don't melt anything. We're going to take it to the microwave and cook that for 1 minute. Chocolate chips melt, but they don't break down in the microwave, so you can't tell by looking at them if they've melted. You'll need to stir them, and then they'll stir up melted. So we're going to go 1 minute. Okay, these look like they're still whole. I'm going to stir them up, and they blend in. As they are stirred, they're hot, they'll continue to melt. So if you have a few chunks in there, give it a few minutes before you decide whether or not they need to be melted more. Okay. Because of time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and frost my bars, but you guys would want to get rid of the rest of those lumps. Put it back in the microwave for maybe another 30 seconds. Okay? But we're going to frost our Scotcheroos, kind of pour it all over so it's not as hard to get it totally covered. I would use a rubber scraper to clean this container out. And then just swipe back and forth one direction and swipe back and forth the other direction till everybody's got a little bit of chocolate peanut butter combination, or chocolate butterscotch on their piece. Now, one bad thing about FCS labs, 45 minutes long, is that we're not going to give this chocolate time to set. If you were making these at home, I would make them and let them sit for about an hour or more, let that chocolate harden back up. But we're going to eat those These with the chocolate still warm. That's Scotcheroos.